This on-demand Sports Hub content is brought to you by Tullamore Dew Irish Whiskey. Be sure to enjoy the game with a triple distilled, triple cask matured, and triple blended Tullamore Dew Irish Whiskey. Game time, Tully time. Please drink responsibly. 40% alcohol by volume. Imported by William Grant & Sons Incorporated, New York, New York.
B-Pod Studios.
This is Hardcore Baseball.
A home run for Ted Williams in his last time at bat.
Yastrzemski is going hard, and he dives and makes a tremendous catch.
What a catch by Dwight Evans. If it stays fair, home run.
Clemens has set a major league record for strikeouts in a game.
300 strikeouts for Pedro Martinez. Gone! A grand slam home run for Nomar Garciaparra. Manny Ramirez with an absolute rocket. A new Red Sox single-season record for home runs. 51, as David Ortiz now stands alone.
Here's your host, Matt McCarthy.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Hardcore Baseball. This is the time of year you got to just love, right? I mean, if you're not into this playoff race, 2 weeks or less to go in the season, where every game matters, every inning matters, every decision matters, I don't know what to tell you. If you're not into that, you don't like baseball. Just plain and simple. This is when it matters. This is when it counts. And we're about to ramp it up big time here on Hardcore Baseball as the playoffs ramp up, as the end of the season comes to a close here. We're about to kick it into high gear here on Hardcore Baseball, so look forward to that. If you like kicking it into high gear and you want to go really hardcore, there's only one person to do that. The man himself, Tyler Milliken. You've had yourself a good few weeks here, Milliken. I know people are beating the hell out of you all throughout the month of August. I would say September has been a good time to be Tyler Milliken.
Much better. You know, it's funny. You know, people want to hop on for months, right? Like everyone started to see the flip switch. Everyone stopped talking because they were so good through the first 4 months, 3.5 months of the season. No one had a word. All the Chaim Bloom haters, they didn't have anything to say. They all shut their mouth and they took it because there was nothing you could say. And then everything happens with the trade deadline. You have, Tony Maz sleeping in his Anthony Rizzo jersey. Oh, trust me, I hope you're sleeping well on that right now. That 300 OBP since August 1st. That's doing great for them, huh? But it is what it is. Eventually the numbers come back. You look at Chaim Bloom, who continues to show he can evaluate talent as well as anybody in the entire big leagues right now, even when he's picking guys off the scrap heap. Feels good. Nothing's, in stone yet, but I feel good about the Red Sox and their wild card chances right now.
All right, I'll let you take an even bigger victory lap later. We're going to table the Anthony Rizzo thing for the time being. You know why, Milliken? Because I have the power, and I'm going to make you wait on that. But you did say, you feel good about the way things are going down the stretch here. So I'll just put this to you, because this is the real story. Are they going to make the wild card game? Yes or no, and why?
Yes, and I think it's a few different things. I think you look at this Orioles series, the way they're beating up on the team, this is what they should do.
Yep.
This isn't some kind of thing where you should sit there and be like, oh my God, look at how they're swinging. This is what you're hoping for. But they weren't playing like this against bad teams for quite some times. We remember their, the Rangers series, the Twins series. Those were as hard-fought wins as you're going to find. Like they were playing the Rays. But right now, they have found their groove back after 12 players tested positive for COVID. The roster outside of Christian Arroyo is just about fully back. Arroyo's right on the brink of being back right now. And slowly but surely, the parts of the team that this team was built on, the lineup and the bullpen, are doing what they were supposed to do this entire time. And that's the big thing. The starting rotation's pitching great as well. And Alex Cora has set up the rotation and now the bullpen where they're in as good of a spot as you're going to find, including the way the season ends with the series against the Orioles and the Nationals. When the Yankees, for example, they're going to be hitting, the Blue Jays and the Rays back to back, and that could ultimately kill their season right there.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it feels like the stars have aligned, Milliken. I mean, there's no excuse for the Red Sox not to make the wild card game. They have it lined up as perfectly as you can line it up for a team, in the middle of a battle with three teams to get two spots. As we sit here, we are recording on Sunday. Before the conclusion of the Orioles series. It's going to be a win. I'll tell you that right now. Red Sox are going to win this game with Nathan Eovaldi on the mound today. So as we sit right now, they're a game and a half up in the wild card standings. And I just think that, everything is kind of laying down for them to get to the wild card game. Not only is the schedule in regards to the teams that you play, it's the number of off days that you have in here too, Milliken. You talked about Cora setting up the rotation. Maz and I were going over this the other night. Red Sox are going to go 3 times through the rotation, essentially just a 4-man rotation, and Chris Sale's going to get 4 starts. He would be lined up as we speak right now to start the final game of the season on Sunday against the Washington Nationals if you need it. And Nathan Eovaldi, who's probably the guy you want pitching in that wild card game against the heavily right-handed Yankees or against the heavily right-handed Blue Jays, he would be lined up to pitch the wild card game on regular rest, full go, everything you want. It feels like they're kind of finding their mojo. The schedule here is really weak down the stretch. You don't even need to win the Yankees series. If you just go 1-2 against the Yankees, you're probably in really good shape, given the amount of games you have left against the Orioles, the Nationals, and hell, even 2 against the Mets, and the Mets aren't, that great. I mean, let's be totally honest. So it really has laid down for them. The stars have aligned. Milliken, if they don't make the wild card game, that will be a massive failure, at least in my opinion, with the way that everything is set up here in the final week and a half.
It definitely would be disappointing. I agree with you there. They have everything in their favor, and it frustrates me a little bit to see the people who are looking at this end of the year schedule and not giving them credit for it. Listen, they played the same amount of games against all these teams as everybody else did. And you know why? That's part of why August was so brutal. They went through the gauntlet and got their heads kicked in. And that's just what it was. But they survived it. They found a way to get through. And you can thank that to getting off to a hot start. If they had played amazing in the second half and played terrible in the first half, everyone would have told you they should have played better to start the year. It's a marathon, and people have forgotten that. And so many people cited stats, from the beginning of the second half to the trade deadline to August, and tried to use that as the measuring stick for this team. When did baseball ever become about a 3 or 4 week stretch here? That's not what this game is about. It's about how you play throughout 162 and where you are at the end. And the Red Sox, they've had their ups. They've had as high ups as any team in baseball, but they hit some dramatic lows. The fact that they're still standing here, despite guys like Xander Bogaerts and JD Martinez really stalling out for months at a time for a team that needs to slug to win games, it feels, I don't want to use this word, crazily here, but it's almost a miracle they're still in contention right now.
I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily a miracle, but here's what I'll say. Like, sometimes you just got to survive it, right? That's a baseball season. Sometimes you just got to survive it. The most important 9-game stretch the Red Sox have played this entire season, to me, was in this past, week and a half, Tampa Bay, Chicago, Seattle. 2 of those series on the road, including Sunday in Seattle, Sunday in Chicago, Monday in Seattle. Then you're coming back at the end of that. They go 4-5 in that stretch. That's not great. That's not awesome, but they survived it. And that's all they needed to do. I said it at the beginning of September. I think I said it either here on the podcast or on the Baseball Hour. I said, you look at that 9-game stretch, they don't even need to have a winning record. They just got to survive it. They go 4-5, they're good. That's exactly what they did. And it was ugly at times. The Seattle series, as most series in Seattle are, it's the first time they've won a series there since 2013. It's
Mike
ugly.
Barbera.
It's ugly. You lose the game with Schwarber booting that routine ground ball at first base. You lose because of that. You find a way, you scrap a way to get some victories there. Extra innings, late innings stuff. Like, oh man, it was ugly. It didn't look good. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't enjoyable as a fan to sit there and sweat it through like that. But they came out, they took 2 out of 3. They go 4-5 against good contending team. I don't think Seattle's that great, but you know what? At least they're still in the mix. 4-5 against those teams. That set them up here for the end. We got a soft landing with Baltimore 6 times to the Nationals in that final series.
That Mariners series was playoff baseball. If they got swept there, right there, that would have been completely shaken up the wild card standings and where they were at. And there were a lot of people who were looking at the Mariners and trying to, they're the Cinderella team, watch them find a way in, knock down the Red Sox, whose mojo's bad. I think anybody, look at the run differential. It'll tell you. Run differential won't tell you anything, but if you're negative 50, it will tell you a lot about the kind of games they're winning there. I don't think what has really stuck out to me in the last 4 games, JD Martinez and Xander Bogaerts have had an RBI in each one of those games. You've seen the offense come alive, scoring at least 7 runs in those games. Both of those guys, Xander Bogaerts, July and August, he said it himself. He was playing like trash.
Right.
And if you were to tell anyone Xander Bogaerts was going to play like crap for a 2-month stretch, they would not have had this team giving you 81 to 85 wins. If someone told you since the beginning of June that JD Martinez was no longer going to be an elite hitter in baseball, they would have told you this team was done, and they found a way to survive. And you can look at it. Who do you want to credit for that? You can go down the list. Kike Hernandez being your best hitter over the summer. I don't. It's hard to argue that. He was kind of the real drive leading them in July. And then you had Hunter Renfroe, who had an August of a lifetime. Bobby Delbeck finishing, that month on a really high note. But you look at it, and this is just something for those people. The engine was built by Dave Dombrowski for this team. We know that. It was up to Chaim Bloom to fill out the counterparts. The counterparts he's got here to take them over this stretch, whether you want to look at Jose Iglesias. Guy has a 189 weighted runs created plus. Travis Shaw, a 145 weighted runs created plus.
Is that good?
That's 45% above average.
Okay.
Hey,
all right. Tell me how to quantify these things,
It's
Milliken.
okay. Here, I'll throw it up for you. Jose Iglesias, his OPS, it's 1060. Travis Shaw, it's 933. Alex
I can
Verdugo,
understand that.
895. Kyle Schwarber, 863. Hunter Renfroe, 924. Bobby Delbeck's over 1100. What can you not say? Chaim Bloom's pieces are doing their job and then some here. And you got to put some respect on that. Because if they don't trade for Kyle Schwarber, they're not in playoff contention still. If they trade for Anthony Rizzo, they're not in playoff contention still. Because you had to pick one or the other. And that's reality. If Anthony Rizzo's on this team, he'd sink this team so damn quickly with how poor he swung the bat. And you look at Kyle Schwarber's impact. How much did we talk about the Red Sox swinging at garbage for months? Garbage. Kyle Schwarber shows up. Oh, guess what? The team has a plate approach now. You think that's a surprise? No, because they watch what a professional hitter can do with the plate.
All right, so you did your nice little Chaim Bloom victory lap there at the deadline, which
thank you.
Kyle Schwarber, tremendous impact. There's no doubt about it. I will just say, and this is not pushing back against you, Milliken. This is pushing back against, to use a Chaim Bloom term, the narrative. The narrative about Schwarber versus Rizzo. I never liked that discussion. And sure, I mean, I played in a little bit, but here's why, all right? My criticism of Chaim Bloom at the deadline was he didn't get pitching because, listen, maybe Robles and Big Fudge have been a little better than one anticipated.
They've been a little better. They've been a little better than a little better. Let's be real. That's a 361 FIP for Hansel Robles, a 309 FIP for Davis. 15 out of 19 of Robles' appearances have been scoreless.
Do you trust them?
That's not a little bit.
Do you trust them?
In the 6th or 7th inning, yeah. Not when they have to pitch the 8th and 9th inning because you got half your bullpen on the COVID-19 IL.
So here's what I'm saying. I think...
And you know me, I'm a Ryan Tepera guy.
I know, and they should have traded for Tepera. My issue was that they did not trade for a first baseman at the deadline, which was their biggest glaring need. Now, Chaim Bloom told us that Kyle Schwarber was a first baseman. Kyle Schwarber's not a first baseman. So saying, the Schwarber to Rizzo thing, it was a very easy thing for us to do because the Yankees got an actual first baseman, the Red Sox didn't. I think focusing on Schwarber versus Rizzo really isn't focusing on the real story, which is Bobby Dahlbeck. Bobby Dahlbeck, who they didn't really trust at the trading deadline because they tried to, they did trade for Kyle Schwarber. They tried to turn him into a first baseman. That plan obviously has not stuck. But one of the reasons that plan hasn't stuck is because Bobby Dahlbeck, who I don't think they really believed in, has caught on fire. All right. So this is in some ways the biggest development for the Red Sox since the trading deadline. It's not trading for Schwarber, which was huge. Don't get me wrong. But it's the impact that Bobby Dahlbeck has given them because he's a first baseman. He's been on fire. It changes the complexion of the entire team. Now, Schwarber gives you an impact bat. There's no doubt about it. And I said day one, Milliken, I mean, you were there. I said,
yep.
This guy's an impact bat. The problem is I don't see the fit. I don't know where he's going to play. And it is going to make Alex Cora's job tough here. Wild card game, you're going to sacrifice offense or defense. How are you doing this? I want a better fit. Don't get me wrong. But it's still a good problem to have because he had Schwarber. The real thing here is that Schwarber-Rizzo thing, it takes away from what Bobby Dahlbeck has done, which has been outstanding.
No, I agree. I do think it takes away. Now, the situation where I would disagree is that the Dahlbeck and the Rizzo and Schwarber stuff ties in because you couldn't get both of them. You were not going to trade 3 top 10 prospects. So you had to pick. Do I want a bat I can depend on that the lineup badly needed and was scuffling for, weeks at a time there as Xander Bogaerts and JD Martinez let this team down? Or do I go with Anthony Rizzo, who, it's a fine bat at this point and good defense at first base. He has 2 errors. Bobby Dahlbeck has 3 at first base over this stretch. So the gap there, it's more of a gap. And I will tell you that first place. But for those people that want to cite errors, even though that's not the right way to do it, there you go, if you want to compare them. But look at the line. Bobby Dahlbeck since August 1st, 324, 414, 757, 1171 OPS.
Game changer.
Yeah, 204 weighted runs created plus. He's more than double a league average hitter, 104% better. Anthony Rizzo, 220, 300, 358, 658, 82 weighted runs created plus. So 18% below average hitter in all of baseball right now. That's where you stand. Bobby Dalbec emerged, and you look at it. Dalbec has said it himself. Schwarber's impact of him coming in, having that kind of major league plate approach, not only did it spark him, I think he finally realized I'm running out of time here, but he was at best looking at a platoon spot where they kind of mixed and matched with Schwarber in the outfield. Now he's one of the best hitters on the team. He's played a huge part in carrying this team over the last month, and it just goes back. The reason you can tie it is everyone who cried over Anthony Rizzo, you have to admit it to this point. You were wrong. The price was not worth it. And that kind of thinking would have hurt your farm system significantly for something that would have also hurt your major league team.
Well, let's see. Okay. And don't get me wrong. The numbers are great right now. Dalbec has been a better player than Rizzo. Adding Schwarber, he's been more impactful. Let's see. One game playoff, if Kyle Schwarber makes an error at first base, if he's out there, that's where we'll determine this, right?
See, I got to disagree, because if Anthony Rizzo's on this team, you don't have Bobby Dalbec playing at all. There's no room for him. That's just the realistic truth of it. And if you don't have Bobby Dalbec in this line, 204 weighted runs created plus. Yeah. He's been arguably the best hitter in baseball in this stretch. If Anthony Rizzo's there, you are not getting that. And that's just reality. And I don't think this lineup would have survived those stretches without Kyle Schwarber and Bobby Dalbec, who were your best hitters for a couple weeks at a time.
No, totally fair point. I guess I would just say, I guess I would just say the Red Sox almost got lucky, because they were not expecting this from Dalbec. Clearly, they were trying to trade for a first baseman. They chose Schwarber in the hopes that they could turn him into a first baseman. That obviously hasn't worked out. But one of the reasons it hasn't worked out is Dalbec has played himself into the lineup on a lot of days. Now, he doesn't look like a first baseman to look in. I'm sorry. He just doesn't.
Schwarber?
Schwarber?
He was, listen, I'm not trying to tell you he was even average, but he could get the job done. He made one error, and it was a tough error. It killed you. It was a 3-run blast. But if it
he also missed a pop-up in that game. Again, so here's the thing. After an off season, if you bring Kyle Schwarber back next year, I think he can maybe play first base. But with an off season's worth of work. So what it comes down to for me is, you're going to have decisions to make here in this wild card game, assuming you're there. How do you line up? How do you balance that with defensive approach? Here's the thing. You were trading for Schwarber to be your first baseman. You're going to put him there in a wild card game? Let's say you're facing Garrett Cole, tough righty. You want Dalbec in there against Garrett Cole? You're going to put Schwarber there? There are a lot of decisions to make, and I don't think there are any obvious choices here, because I just don't know if you would want to trust Schwarber in a one-game playoff where one error at first base could make the difference. So we can look over it in the long term and say, well, this guy's a better player than Rizzo and all that, and sure, he is. But when you're making your lineup card out for a one-game playoff, at least the Yankees don't have to say, and I'm not saying that this is the reason you should make a trade or not, but the Yankees don't have to worry about, if I put this guy at first base, is he going to cost me the game in the season? That is still on the table for the Red Sox. It's going to be a very tough decision for Alex Cora to make.
Yeah, it is. And I give credit to Alex Cora. We saw him picking his spots with Kyle Schwarber in Seattle. Yep. It wins you the game. You know what I mean? Coming off. It's just, I can't overlook the fact that if Bobby Dalbec and Kyle Schwarber aren't here right now, this team is not in playoff contention. They would be out for the season. And I think it goes back to the Chaim Bloom idea. You kind of have to worry about it when you get there and you deal with it, because once again, if you got Anthony Rizzo, you're not here. It's just reality. He would not have been able to carry this lineup or impact them the way Kyle Schwarber and Bobby Dalbec have. And that's just reality. And I think with Schwarber, it's there have been tough moments. People also don't talk about early in that Seattle game when you turn the nice double play at first base. He's fine. No one's asking. He's not a Gold Glove first baseman. Can he make the routine plays? Yes, outside of one. And that he's not great, but can he get the job done? Yes. In a playoff game, I agree. That's a conversation you really need to have here, especially when Bobby Dalbec's picking the ball like he is.
Yep.
This isn't average first base play. This is well above average.
So the thing about Dalbec, and I said this back in July. Maz and I did a whole show on this. Boy, Bobby Dalbec sucks at first base. This is before the trading deadline and everything. And I said to Maz, here's a kid who's carrying his struggles at the plate into the field, because Dalbec coming up through the system was widely regarded as a good third baseman, and he played a lot of first base in the minor leagues because they knew they were going to have to move him around. They knew Devers was ahead of him. And he was, Chavis was down there too. So, he saw time at first base. He saw plenty of time at first base. And at the beginning of the season, I was like, this kid's pretty athletic. I think he can play this position pretty well. And then, boy, he really struggled over the summer. And I really felt this because he was taking his struggles from the plate into the field. And once he started hitting, the glove came around too. I mean, I think this guy can play first base. I think he can play third base. I know he can play third base. I think ideally you have him start getting some time in left field too eventually, because that's how he's going to stick in the big leagues, because he's the type of guy that you're going to ride when he's hot, but he's going to get ice cold too because there's a lot of swing and miss in his game. So you're going to want him to be as versatile as possible. That's a discussion for down the road. But credit to Bobby Dahlbeck, because he was horrible in the field all summer long, which is one of the reasons you needed a first baseman. You're like, man, you just need somebody to field this position because he's killing you on a nightly basis. The second he got locked in at the plate was the second he found his glove again.
Yeah, and I give him credit. You don't see these kind of turnarounds from young guys, especially with that kind of plate approach. They're usually the guys who are, kind of all or nothing at the plate. If they have a season like this, you usually kind of just say it's a lost year for them. But Bobby Dahlbeck just continuing to stick with it. And, they talked all season long about what he was doing in the back and trying to figure things out. You could see the body language at first base at times when he was having those 0 for 4, 3 strikeout games. It looks like the Kyle Schwarber. The bringing him in, that professional plate approach. I don't want to keep harping on this, but this is what Alex Cora is saying. This is what the team is saying. He kind of restructured the way they were attacking pitchers again. And Bobby Dahlbeck has come out of it. I think probably the bigger thing really is just he realized he was running out of time here. All the applause to Bobby Dahlbeck. And I agree. I think you do need to start getting some time in left field. And I was a guy who said, I didn't believe in Bobby Dahlbeck as a big league starter. I thought, he was a fringy kind of guy.
And he still might be. We don't know.
He could be. I think there's real signs, and I'm not trying to tell you he's going to be some regular starting first baseman. He's a big league player. And cutting down the strikeout rate like he has, that's what we saw from him every level of the minors.
So true.
And now we're seeing it again. And I think with Dahlbeck in the first base stuff as well, he didn't get as much time there as people want to act. Like, it was kind of one of those things once he got to AAA and the upper minors, they put him on. And he picked it up. And that doesn't excuse the struggles. He's better than the plays he was making early in the season. And he's shown that right now. But right now, with the plays he's making at first base, it's carrying a defense with guys like Rafael Devers and Xander Bogaerts, who are extremely error-prone.
Yeah, I was at the game Friday night. Dahlbeck had a couple nice picks. Devers and Bogaerts had 2 great plays at the bare hand, too. You're like, okay, this is a team that's finding their mojo, because the Baltimore Orioles suck. Don't get me wrong. I can't watch 4 more games of the Baltimore Orioles. My God, it's absolute torture. But hey, listen, those plays had nothing to do with the fact that the Baltimore Orioles were on the other side. So it's a team that's finding their mojo. I was talking about this with Maz the other night. And we were saying it feels like they're on the verge of getting hot. What that means, I don't know, in the context of the playoffs, in the context of the wild card game. But it feels to me like they're on the verge of getting hot down the stretch here, which you and I agree. They're going to be in that wild card game. Let's talk about what that could mean coming up next. Whether you like their chances in the wild card game. We both agree. We like their chances to get there. Let's talk a little big picture here. What is the ceiling for the Red Sox moving forward? Is there a ceiling? We'll do that next. Milliken's alongside Matt McCarthy, Tyler Milliken. This is Hardcore Baseball.
This Sports Hub On-Demand content is brought to you by Miller Lite. Miller Lite, an official partner of the Boston Celtics, would like to say cheers to 75 years of Boston Celtics basketball, to 17 banners, to the players, coaches, and staff from yesterday and today. And of course, cheers to Celtics fans everywhere. So raise the original light beer to this storied franchise and cheers to another 75 years of Boston Celtics basketball. From your friends at Miller Lite, it's game time, it's Miller time.
Back with Tyler Milliken. Where can people heckle you on Twitter again, Milliken? Is it at Tyler Milliken _?
It is at Tyler Milliken _. I'd love to hear from all of my friends who let me know how great Anthony Rizzo was for months and how, he was going to somehow change everything for the Red Sox and, make them a World Series contender. Love to check in. Let's talk.
If Rizzo wins the wild card game for the Yankees, will you go into hiding?
No, because once again, you have to look at it's a 2-month sample size. And if Anthony Rizzo was on this team, he doesn't play the savior like Kyle Schwarber and Bobby Dahlbeck have. That's nothing indisputable. Sure, Anthony Rizzo's not a bad ball player. Like, I don't want anyone to take that. It's just, as I said at the time, it came down to cost, where the farm system was at, and you had to pick. I think Chaim Bloom, he called the shot. He said, I think I was getting arguably the best bat at the deadline. It's hard to debate that at this point.
All right, there you go, Milliken. Always passionate. It's like, you play the hits, Milliken. Just always go back to that Anthony Rizzo thing, and you'll be you'll get fired up. So
the W's are racking up.
Hey, but again, you say it's more about the sample size than the one game W. So, that kind of runs contrary to what the Red Sox are probably going to be in here in a couple weeks. At least you and I think so. They're going to be in the wild card game. So I guess just the general feel, first and foremost, what do you think the wild card matchup's going to be? I think it's going to be Red Sox Blue Jays, personally.
Yeah, that's the way I'd lean as well. The Blue Jays in a lot of ways are kind of similar. Obviously, they've been playing much better baseball over the recent stretch than the Red Sox, but their rotation, Robbie Ray is, chasing down his Cy Young right now. The bats, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is as hot as he's been at any point this season.
Wagon.
Oh my God, it's ridiculous. Like, just watching him, it scares me so much for what's to come in the next few years. But yeah, I think Red Sox, Blue Jays, that'd be the matchup. I think if you're looking for home field, I think it's a true coin flip either way. And I think it's going to come down to the end. Either way, you put that Blue Jays lineup in the Rogers Center or Fenway, it's scary. It's very scary.
So whether or not the Red Sox are playing the Blue Jays or the Yankees, home field to me is critical in this game. It's absolutely critical. Not just for the fact that, do you really want 55,000 New Yorkers screaming at you when you're trying to get 3 outs late in a ball game? Like, we know that that's a factor. Do you want it to be at Fenway Park where it's going to be loud and it's going to be uncomfortable for a visiting team and coming in? Like, sure, you want that. I'm talking about actual lineup construction, and I'm talking about defensive alignment. Fenway Park gives you more flexibility because, as we've talked about, really the one problem with the Schwarber trade is there isn't really a fit, and I think it makes it really difficult on Alex Cora every night to figure out his best lineup, his best defensive alignment, and how that all meshes together, because your best offensive lineup is your worst defensive lineup. So what are you going to do here? Fenway Park does give you the ability, at least to me, if you want to get Schwarber and Martinez into the lineup at the same time, you could, at Fenway Park, consider hiding J.D. Martinez in left field for a few innings. Hope you get a lead and then switch to your defensive lineup. If you're playing in Toronto, I don't want that. Like, it's off the table to me. Like, honestly, if you're playing in Toronto, is Schwarber coming off the bench? Is Dahlbeck coming off the bench? You going lefty, righty there? Like, it's just, put it this way, you're not putting Martinez in the outfield in Toronto, or maybe even Yankee Stadium, even with that right field. Like, I would consider it at Fenway Park. I wouldn't consider it anywhere else. So home field, to me, gives Alex Cora more options when it comes to defensive alignment and lineup construction.
Yeah, you definitely want home field in a situation like this. We've seen the Red Sox, some of the road struggles they've had, over the recent stretch as well. Getting into Fenway, I think listen, it's going to be a slugfest, I think, one way or about it. Both of these lineups, the Red Sox and Blue Jays, if that's what it comes to, or even the Yankees, the bats are what these teams are supposed to live off of. I think when you look at where the Red Sox are in terms of making those decisions with a Kyle Schwarber and Alex Verdugo, JD Martinez. Yeah, I agree. I would definitely lean more defense in some of those spots. I think the other thing is with JD Martinez, this last stretch for me is very important. It's hard to sit him in a spot like that with the money he's making. But I think if JD Martinez, kind of turns back into what he's been for, most of this season past May, I think you have a real conversation whether you want him or Kyle Schwarber in the lineup, because I think we both know who's the better hitter at this point.
Yeah, Schwarber.
I think if you're trying to make a hard decision and I'm Alex Cora, I'd have that discussion with JD Martinez and be like, hey, it's nothing personal, but let's be real. Outside of, April and May, you haven't been the same hitter since 2019. It's a hard discussion. You also look at JD; he's a leader in that clubhouse, so it's another hard point. But
it depends on pitching matchups too. If you're facing a righty or you're facing a lefty, I mean that changes everything for Alex Cora. So again, it comes back to roster construction. It comes back to fit. I said this the other night. You need to hope that Alex Cora gets hot the way he did in 2018, the way he managed his pitching staff, the way they didn't have much of a bullpen. They found a way to manage around it. It felt like Cora pressed mostly every right button in the 2018 run. It's one of the reasons they essentially coasted to the World Series, because it felt like every decision Cora made, really outside of Game 3 of the World Series, where he totally bungled the National League thing and double switches and all that, and he had Eovaldi pitching 6 innings. Like, it feels like Cora had a great run outside of Game 3 of the World Series. You better hope he gets hot again, because if you get into the wild card game, if you get into the division round, we're going to be having these discussions every night. Where's Schwarber playing? Is he in the lineup? Is Martinez in the lineup? You playing Dahlbeck at first? Is he going lefty-righty? Verdugo's hit the ball well, but you taking him out against lefties. Like, how you doing this? and it's going to create a lot of second guessing. And you better hope that Cora gets hot, because to me, the general manager did make his job a little bit tougher. Now, I think Cora's capable of it. I think Cora's a good manager, but it's not a set it and forget it lineup.
No, it's not. And I think Alex Cora has to be realistic about why you are in this situation and what put you in this situation as well. You know what I mean?
I'm not throwing a pity party for Alex Cora. This is his job.
No, but I mean, in terms of these decisions with like JD Martinez and these guys, when it comes to decision making, you got to realize what put you with this kind of weird roster situation. I think Alex Verdugo, I don't like him not being in this lineup. It really, I think his plate approach over the last 2 months has been as good as you can ask. He's been one of the best hitters on the Red Sox for more than a 2 month stretch. He's almost hitting 300 this year again. A lot of people wrote him off this summer and said, I'm Bloom, Alex Verdugo, you threw the parade too far. I'm talking to you, McCarthy.
You still did throw too much of a parade.
He's a good player. He's
Benintendi.
What you hope Andrew Benintendi is, not the Andrew Benintendi of today.
Have you seen Benintendi's recent stretch here, Milliken?
Yeah, he's hitting well in September. He's also below average at the plate, below average in the field, and below average on the base paths.
I love busting your balls about Benintendi. It gets you so fired up.
But listen, it's no doubt Andrew Benintendi can hit the ball, but let's be real. What has happened every time he's hit? He's landed on the IL this year. Another flaw in his game, as we talked about.
Absolutely.
I think at this point, and maybe this sounds crazy, I'd care more about getting Alex Verdugo in the lineup in the field than I would getting JD Martinez in the lineup.
Interesting. Even against lefties. I mean, his numbers against lefties haven't been great this year, but I mean, you tell me if they've been better recently. Admittedly, it feels like his at-bats have been more competitive against lefties. I don't know how that translates in his splits.
Yeah, over the last 2 month stretch, or even a little bit more than that, the splits have been much better against lefties. And people forget. Remember the Ron Renicky debate a year ago? Everyone was pissed that Verdugo wasn't in the lineup against lefties because he's shown the ability. It really doesn't make a difference. I think he scuffled against them early in the year. He's figured it out. This looks like the Alex Verdugo of 2020 again. And I just think that approach is more consistent than what JD Martinez has been. But if JD Martinez goes on a run here, then you got to have him in the lineup. It's just I've seen these 3-4 game stretches from him where he swings the bat and then the next 4 nights he's swinging at balls 3 inches off the plate.
Right. I mean, so the real question is here, okay, let's say for the sake of discussion, Robbie Ray is the starting pitcher. It's Nathan Eovaldi versus Robbie Ray. Wild card game at Fenway Park. Let's say that, because I mean, I think with the Red Sox playing the Orioles and the Nationals down the stretch, Blue Jays still have to play the Yankees. I know the Red Sox still have to play the Yankees too, but just work with me on this. At Fenway Park, because I think, again, it does matter, home field versus playing that game in Toronto or at Yankee Stadium as to how you're going to line up. Robbie Ray's on the mound. You would have Verdugo in the lineup, but you have him in left or center? How are you approaching that?
I'm putting him in left. I would take Kike Hernandez in center. I'd have Bobby Dalbec at first. Yep. I'd put Schwarber at DH. And then at second base,
Arroyo?
Your best, because he's a lefty platoon bat. He's made sense there. Jose Iglesias, for people who don't know, he's not eligible for the postseason.
Kind of feels like a bit of a blow. Feels like he's giving them something a little bit. Yeah.
Listen, for me, that's my childhood right there. Like the Jose Iglesias years. I know that dates, some people, but for me, that's so fun to see. It sucks because the defense.
That's your childhood. You're still a child, Milliken.
But it's this thing where I don't think people understood how much losing Christian Arroyo hurt the defense of this team and how much it gave you Kike Hernandez in center field, who he's great out there, man.
He's your best defensive player in center field, no doubt.
You can't ask for any more out of him out there. Christian Arroyo, second base, that'd probably be my best lineup. But, if JD Martinez, like I said, if he goes on a hot streak here, that changes it. But if it's the JD Martinez we've seen for a majority of this year, that's where I lean.
So something I just want to focus on there for a second, and I understand what you're saying, that Schwarber's been a more impactful bat than Martinez. But you would have Schwarber as your DH against a lefty and Martinez out of the lineup.
Yeah, I think I just trust Kyle Schwarber's kind of approach at the plate a little bit more than I would JD Martinez. JD Martinez, whether you could pick either side of the plate, it just hasn't been consistent. And I think Kyle Schwarber, just the patience, him going out there. And I'm not saying I think you can mix and match throughout the game as well a little bit here with JD Martinez and maybe pick your spot.
Yeah.
But I think Kyle Schwarber, what he brings and gives to this lineup in terms of patience is something they really didn't have for a majority of the year. And I trust that bat more. I think Kyle Schwarber is a significantly better hitter at this point.
Interesting. And, that's against the lefty too. I would just say, the only thing I'll push back about that discussion on would be, then I don't know really how you pick your spot with him late in the game. Maybe have him hitting right on right. You pinch it for Arroyo late in the game or something like that. right on right. You figure it out, then you're down, then you put him in the outfield, Verdugo in center. Like, I mean, you got some options there. I guess I just probably wouldn't sit Martinez against a lefty.
I could see both sides of the argument. I feel like when Kyle Schwarber's not in this lineup, they've lacked a punch. He's
totally
just been such an important part of that middle, and it's no disrespect to JD Martinez. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to say he's garbage or anything at this point, but like when you have lower than a 330 OBP since the beginning of May, and you have Kyle Schwarber, who is just an on-base percentage machine, it's hard. But I think. And when I'm telling you, I feel like I'm picking, it's two things. The gap is not that much. Like if Cora lean JD, I'm not going to sit there and be like, what are you doing? I don't have much love for JD Martinez at this point overall.
Sure.
And I don't love how he's been at the plate. It's too inconsistent for a guy who's supposed to be one of your best hitters.
Well, I mean, here's the point, is that this is going to be a tough decision. Like we could do this for another 30 minutes talking about every scenario that the Red Sox could be in, and there isn't really a right answer as to how they're going to approach this. Like, okay, it's against the lefty. Verdugo struggled against lefties. Does that mean that you put Martinez in left field and you try and hide him there? Hernandez in center, then you pinch hit with Verdugo late in the game for Arroyo if you're down, or if you're up, you put him in as a defensive replacement because you don't want Martinez out there. Like, we could do this for the next half hour. We won't, but I think the point is that there is no clear answer for Alex Cora here. It's not like he lacks options. Some of these options I think are pretty good, but there isn't an obvious choice. And it's going to lead to a second guess that if you go with a more offensive lineup, somebody makes an error that costs you a game, well, that's a problem. Or if you go with a more defensive lineup and JD Martinez or Kyle Schwarber or Dahlbeck or Verdugo's out of the lineup and Christian Arroyo goes 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts, then you're saying, well, they should have gone with their best offensive lineup. So it's a tough call. It really is. And particularly in the context of one game, it's also fascinating, though, which is what I love about the wild card game. Do you like the wild card, the one game wild card?
I go back and forth on it. I'm not going to lie. I understand I'll put it like this. From the player standpoint, I disagree, or I agree with the frustration that you play 162 and it comes down to 1. But I think ultimately, if you're looking at it from bringing people in, making fans care, which is probably the biggest priority for the sport right now, the one game wild card and the storylines and how it's played out the last few years, it brings people in who are casual and just want to see the craziness for one night. And I think that's what you need to lean here. And just a little thing to add to that last conversation. Schwarber's hitting 270 against lefties this year.
Right.
So,
his bat needs to be in the lineup one way or the other in a wild card game.
And that's not me crapping on JD Martinez and Schwarber. He is better against righties. It's not that, but he's not useless out there. It's 17 walks. Like he can do his thing out there. I think, like you said, it's picking your poison. But the wild card game, I would lean. I like it more than I dislike it. I don't think it's perfect. I think one side's going to be upset, but I think you need the entertainment value more for the sport right now.
I totally agree. I think it's a great experience as a fan. Fair or unfair, the only time I'll ever complain is if you win like 98 games as a wild card team and you lose to an 84-win team or whatever, like some St. Louis Cardinals situation. Yeah, exactly. Then that's crap. But I've got no problems with the Red Sox or the Yankees or the Blue Jays losing in one game this year. None of them are really that good. So I've got no problems if your season comes down to one game. Like, be better. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can understand that. I think they're all like, the definition of them is, above average teams that, if you're in the NL, but you look at record, like the Red Sox, they're going to win 90 games.
Yeah.
And it's pretty remarkable. But like we said, the AL is significantly weaker this year. We know that. Yeah, I agree. I think you just entertainment purposes sometimes have to dominate it, and it is what it is. And people want less baseball, not more baseball. Yeah. Listen, me, I'll watch all the games. I don't care. Same for you, McCarthy.
I want more urgent baseball. That's the thing.
I understand
when baseball is urgent, it's still the best sport on the planet. Like, I've said this for years. The World Series has been consistently the most competitive championship series in North American sports for years. In the 2010s, we had 2012 went to Game 7. 14 went to Game 7. 16 went to Game 7, one of the greatest games, I think, in the history of the game. 17 went to Game 7. 19 went to Game 7. Last year went to Game 6, and it felt like a Game 7 with the storyline of Blake Snell and everything. Like, for the most part, the World Series is an outstanding take. October is an outstanding take. October's awesome. It's great. these wild card games almost always deliver. They're almost always fascinating. At least one every year is like compelling, must watch. I can't leave my television. October is phenomenal. Baseball still nails it in October. The problem with baseball is just the lack of urgency in other times where it doesn't feel like it matters. When everything matters in October, oh, it's great. It's awesome. You can't beat it.
There's nothing more. And like all those moments, like you just saying them, I picture it. Like I have the pictures in my head, guys screaming, walking off the mound, whatever way you kind of want to go about it.
Bumgarner, 14,
all of them.
Greinke gets pulled, 19.
Exactly.
Kendrick hits the home run. Like it's just run down the list. That Dodgers, Dodgers-Astros series, of course, now marred by the Astros scandal, was phenomenal. It was great.
Yeah. All those moments. And I
Game
agree.
7 was disappointing, but the rest of that series was awesome.
Yeah, those moments in the postseason, something about baseball and the intensity, and it's not saying that other sports don't have it, but it just it feels different. And I don't know if partially it's just, you get in those spots where managers are making decisions that are really going to set the, entire offseason. Kevin Cash, that one decision to pull Blake Snell, and I think Kevin Cash gets a lot of crap. I think he's one of the best managers in the game, but the casual fan will tell you today, I don't like Kevin Cash. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He lets analytics control him, whatever it may be. Even though we've seen from Blake Snell that decision most likely, it made a lot of sense. He's not a guy who goes deep into games.
Wait a minute. This final question. This is where we're wrapping up here. Are you defending the Blake Snell move?
I didn't agree with it in the moment. I agree. I think you have to read the game. But if you're looking at it from Blake Snell as a pitcher on a routine basis, I think that's one of the times when you had to use the eye test, right?
Yeah.
But the numbers speak to it. But the eye test would have told you in that spot. And Kevin Cash didn't let the eye test lead him.
You can't bring yourself to say it was the wrong decision. You had to couch it there. You couched it, Milliken.
I'll tell
Unbelievable.
You, I wouldn't. If I'm Kevin Cash, I don't make that decision. Now, but is that decision so stupid and illogical?
Yes.
No. I wouldn't go that far. You look at Blake Snell. Blake Snell, for the most part of his career, has struggled to go deep into games. But in that moment, I agree. You don't pull Blake Snell.
Milliken, this is why you're the man. This is why, man, what? You just can't bring yourself to do it. You just that inner part of you. You
gotta do both. It's both. You have to use both. And I think in that sense, Kevin Cash leaned a little too hard. He didn't do a good job of balancing it there, and that's where I stand. I'm agreeing with you. I'm not disagreeing.
That is as hard. That's a hardcore take as it gets. I should not be the host of this program. You should be the host of this program. That's the way it goes. Milliken, you're the best as always. Great to have you on. Check him out at Tyler Milliken _. Have you back in October, right? We got to have you back.
I hope so. Let's hope the Red Sox give us something, on their end to talk about. But no matter what, this postseason, it's going to be bonkers. Yeah, I think this is going to be one of the best, kind of Octobers baseball's had.
I can't wait. I'm all aboard the Brew Crew train, by the way. All aboard the Brew Crew train. I think they're my pick. Let's just say that. I can't
disagree with it. I think they're the most likable team in baseball. You look at that starting rotation, it's hard to match up better. That bullpen and a lineup that, they haven't got to the levels they hoped. Willie Adames, not a good trade for the Rays right there. He's been, he's hurt right now, but he's carried that Brewers team, especially offensively in a lot of ways.
Speaking of the Brew Crew, next week's guest might want to talk about some Brew Crew. If we can make that happen. We'll see if we can make that happen. It's in the works right now. I'll just say major teaser right there. Next week's guest loves himself the Milwaukee Brewers. But this week's guest, Tyler Milliken, the man. Thank you as always. Again, check him out, Tyler Milliken _. Great to have you on Hardcore Baseball.
Thank you, McCarthy. I appreciate it as always, man. It's always fun talking baseball. I don't know anyone who loves the game as much as you do, just like I do. So anytime, give me the call and the Ibluminati will show up.